Hey guys, Logan here, and today I'm going to be giving you guys my review for the third season of one of the most popular series on Netflix, Stranger Things, starring a boatload of cast from the previous two seasons. So this season revolves around the newly opened Starcourt Mall, which has become the focal point of Hawkins, driving other stores out of business. Jim Hopper is conflicted over Eleven and Mike's budding relationship, while Joyce considers moving out of Hawkins for better prospects, leaving the state of the children's friendships and her own relationship with Hopper in the air. However, strange power fluctuations trigger Will's awareness of something otherworldly, and Eleven and Max sense something is off about the town's residents. And despite having closed the portal to the Upside Down, they fear that they are all still in danger from it. I enjoyed the first two seasons of this series, more so the second season than the first season, because the first season didn't have much originality to it. It felt like an amalgamation of some classic Steven Spielberg movies from the 90s and early 2000s, as well as the Stephen King horror novels adapted to movies. It felt like it didn't have a voice of its own. That's not mostly the case with Season 2, and I can say the same for Season 3. I love Season 3 of Stranger Things. It is the best season thus far, and it's not just because of the storytelling in most of this show's episodes, which has heavily improved, by the way, but also because the characters that you actually care about and want to know what they're doing and where they go on their journey. And plus, you don't want to see them get injured or worse, get killed. Yes, this series does focus a lot of the nostalgia and a lot of the throwbacks to the 80s and 90s pop culture, but it doesn't fully rely on that as much as it does on the characters, because these characters are so well utilized and so well written that this show wouldn't be as successful as it is now if it didn't develop these characters and make us care for them, as well as crafting a really good story. The cast, as usual, is off the charts. The performances, the acting, excellent. Winona Ryder, David Harbour, and others, especially Millie Bobby Brown, did a fantastic job. Millie Bobby Brown continuously has proven that she's one of the best child actors working in Hollywood today, and she proves that in this season. I especially love the scenes with her and Hopper. They were just hilarious, especially in the first episode of this season, where you see Eleven and Mike having a good time in their room, just doing stuff in her room, and you see that puts Hopper on edge. In fact, Hopper has been on edge throughout this whole season. There's not a moment where you see Hopper feeling so calm and feeling stern or feeling a bit mild-mannered, because he gets really anxious and gets riled up whenever things don't go his way, or that when things are outside of his comfort zone. I really do like how this season shows the highs and lows of child relationships. On one day, you see this young couple looking like they are having great times together, and then in the next day, you see them not looking to get along with each other really well, and you're wondering what happened and how long is this going to take. It was entertaining enough to deliver the laughs, but it also takes it to a much serious approach. And I do like the stable balance that this season made between the comedy and the seriousness within those moments. I love Maya Hawke as Robin. She was awesome. I love what they did with her character, as well as her friendship with Steve Harrington, them joining Dustin on a mission to intercept the signal, decode it, and find out where it's coming from, and it leads them to this secret Soviet Union base underground in Hawkins. And then in a scene or two where you see Hawk and Steve getting drugs from the Soviet Russians provided another level of comedy. And I can't get through reviewing this season without talking about Pariah Ferguson as Lucas' little sister, Erica Sinclair. She was so GD hilarious. Her wits, her bluntness about everything that was going on throughout this season, and her sarcasm provided some of the best comedy I have seen throughout this season. And that's saying a lot too, because was not given much to do within the previous season or two. And so she was a big risk for this season, and luckily she was a risk worth taking just based on what they did with her throughout this season. Another thing that I love about this season of Stranger Things is the production design. It looks so gorgeous. It looks very stylish, even for a show that really feels like a 1980s show. I mean, hell, the Starcourt Mall that definitely is a 1980s mall. It definitely made this show look and feel more like a 1980s show than it actually is. And I gotta give credit to the people behind the season for, putting all the efforts they put into making this season more like a 1980s show. And while this season does start off slow within the first few episodes, it does pick back up, especially after the 4th episode. Everything that happened after episode 4 was great, because the first 3 episodes of this season were fairly decent, and that's mainly because I love these characters. I care about them, I care about what they're doing, and I care about where they're going on their adventures to solve certain mysteries around the city of Hawkins. But in terms of storytelling and how this season was set up from the beginning to how the rest of it was going to be, can be a bit jarring at times. The camera work cannot be ignored as well, along with the lighting, the choices they made in where they were going with this season's main storyline, and the season finale, the Battle of Starcourt. So damn intense and exciting. I was on the edge of my seat every time I watched that episode. And keep in mind, I watched the season twice already, like I mentioned earlier, and it was still very impressive to watch in my second viewing of this season. I want to talk about Dacre Montgomery as Billy here, because he played a crucial role in this season, so be warned, this review is going to contain some spoilers. If you hadn't watched Season 3 of Stranger Things on Netflix before watching this review, please stop watching this, go watch it, and then come back and watch this review. But if you already have watched that season, well, congratulations. Just sit back and enjoy watching this review. So, Dacre Montgomery had a lot more to do in this season than he did in the last season. Here, he's been possessed by the Mind Flayer, or at least this small part of the Mind Flayer that was tormented after 11 closed the gate to the Upside Down from the last season, but reawakened in this season. And so Billy becomes its host for the majority of the season. Rats around Hawkins started eating fertilizer, as well as people. Yes, people also have been started eating fertilizer. They explode and become these red blobs of biomass, and anytime this thing sucks them up, it becomes larger and larger and larger, turning itself into this giant entity. But Billy was being taken control by it, and there were decisions he made that were surprising to his friends, and in particular his sister, Max, who has no idea what's happening. Let's talk about the character Alexei, because from how he was first introduced to how his eventual tragic fate was sealed around the season's finale was unexpected. And they did a really good job with what they were able to do with him, because he was sort of turning away from his people, and as a result, his comrades view him as nothing more than a traitor. And so, from how he was developed at the beginning to how he died at the end was actually sort of gut-wrenching, surprisingly. And then we get to how this season wraps up. The Mind Flayer starts destroying anything in its path, and 11 tries to use her powers, but they're starting to weaken. And and because of that, her friends stood side by side with her to fight against it. Hopper sacrificing himself was a bit of a surprise, and the letter he wrote to 11 was incredibly sad. And it's one of those things about Stranger Things that I didn't see coming, actually. And those are all the positives that I have with this season of Stranger Things. Now let's get to the negatives. Starting off with this one. I didn't really care that much about the part with Dustin's girlfriend existing. It didn't really work for me. And I get that it was meant to add another amount of humor, but it happened at the moment that something serious was going on. And so how they incorporate that part with everything that has come together within this final season 3 episode felt rather abrasive to me. I thought Will was underutilized this time around. He didn't do much at all in this season outside of touching the back of his neck like he felt something. And in one scene where he tried to play a game with Mike and Lucas where he plays this wizard, and they were caught up into something else, and he starts losing it, left the house, went to his tent-like thing or whatever that he was in, and it was raining, and he starts tearing it down, losing it, and then realizing that he's no longer a kid, a small kid that is. Outside of those two things, he kind of been pushed to the sideline. Like he was kind of used as a plot device, to carry the story on within the season, and it just felt rather disappointing to me. And obviously there are a lot of striking similarities that this series has to other films and shows, but one that I just can't get over is the one with this big evil Russian dude who was hunting down Alexei, Joyce, and Hopper. It felt too much like the Terminator to me, where Kyle Reese tries to find Sarah Connor and saves her and tries to keep her hidden from the Terminator that was hunting them. Here, this show recycles some of the same things that happened from that movie, just with a Russian hunting down another Russian, as well as a couple of Americans. And I just wish that they went into a different direction with that. But all in all, I do think this is the best season thus far on Stranger Things. I definitely think it's better than the previous 2 seasons. I care a lot more about these characters, and the storytelling, while not at its best within the first several episodes of the season, it definitely improves as the season goes along. The production design looks amazing, the acting is really good, and while the show does falter on some of its obvious recycling to other films and TV shows from the past, it does well when the characters you love and care about are on screen and solve mysteries along the way, which makes it all the worthwhile. I'm going to give Stranger Things Season 3 a gold medal of honor. So anyway, guys, that is my review for Stranger Things Season 3. Thanks for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, be sure to give it that like button to click, and if you'd like to see future videos from me, make sure to press up there to subscribe, and don't forget to turn on that bell icon so that you'll get notified about my latest videos. Have a great day, and as always, fight the good fight.